morning gentlemen, ladies if we've got any. So my name's Jack Holgate, I'm from RAGT, and today what we're going to do, my colleague Peter is going to take us through our specific cover crop blends for soil health, focusing on specific issues you may encounter in the field. So Peter is the International Product Manager for Soil Health Plants for RAGT, and much more interested than me and knows a far lot more than me about it. So I'm going to pass you over to Peter and he can explain the components and their pros and cons.
Well, yeah, thank you for the introduction, Jack. Well, you probably hear my accent. I'm not an English guy, so I'm a Dutchman, and I work for RAGT, of course, which is a French breeding company. But the cover crop breeding program is based in the Netherlands. The focus of our company is we divided the cover crops into two segments. One is the the ordinary cover crops, and the other one is the soil health plants. And what is the difference? It's all cover cropping, but with soil health plants we try to reduce soil-borne issues and to create a better soil community, soil microbiome. The breeding program we have is mainly on brassicas cover crops, so that is the mustard, the radishes, the rocket lettuce, that's also a cover crop we work with, but also the phacelias, the legumes, the black oats, that's also stuff we look at, all to cover and to create mixtures and also to work with straight products. The focus we do is mainly on disease management of the soil. Often in your rotation, you've got narrow rotation or you've got not a narrow rotation. There are soil-borne issues like nematodes, there are soil-borne fungi present like sclerotinia, like pythium, like verticillium or fusarium. And of course you've got the soil-borne insects, which is also increasing in problems like wireworm, but also leather jackets for instance. And we try in our soil health concept to find solutions, but then on variety level, to suppress those kind of problems. To identify the problems, of course, in the field you have to know your soil very well, because we have so many variable soils that the solution is not always a general option. They say, okay, we've got one mix that covers all the soils, all the rotations we do. No, sometimes it's specific to your specific rotation, specific farm. Well, today here is anyway, we've selected a few of mixtures and several of, I think also a few straight products, just to show you how we think, how we work, and how we create our mixtures to offer solutions to you guys. But in our program, if we look to vegetable producing companies and also of course to cereal producing companies. Myself, I have a farming background. I'm also farming in the Netherlands, more on arable farms, so potatoes, sugar beets, onions and wheat. So I know a little bit about soil quality and soil-borne issues, specifically in the Netherlands where we have a narrow rotation, high value cash crops in an intensive rotation. There are a lot of options with cover crops to fixate and to capture nitrogen, because after a crop there is always a residue of nitrogen left in the soil, which if you don't grow a cover crop you will have a leach out of that mineral. And it's not only nitrogen we look at, we also look to the phosphates, the potassium, and also those other micro elements like manganese, sulfur compounds, etc., which also can be of interest in your rotation. This specific mix, it's a very simple mix. It's two components. One is the Ethiopian mustard you see here. It's the variety Ethiopia. And why do I recall to the variety Ethiopia? Because it's a very late flowering variety. The moment between drilling and the actual flowering stage is about over 90 days. So if you don't want to be bothered a lot with chopping your crop because it turns into flowering and might set seeds, you end up with such kind of variety which is flowering very late. And we added here a component of burr-seam clover, so do the nitrogen fixation together with capturing it with the Ethiopian mustard. And on the other hand, you also capture the phosphates and the potassium, but on that level I come back with the radishes and so on with the other mixtures. This crop has a very deep pen root, so you can go up to 1.5 meter if you have a deep soil to catch your nitrogen, and you can do that because it has a very long growing period. It's about 90 days of growing, what I just said before, so the development of the root is extra long, so you can have a good pickup of that. The other one benefit from this one is also it is frost susceptible. So when the frosts are entering, you don't have a guarantee on frost, of course, it gets killed by frost in the end. So it's easy to work with also in non-tillage system, so in a non-ploughing rotation. course, this is the Fungi Redux. The name already, I think, gives you an idea, a clue behind it. We created this mixture to reduce specific soil-borne fungi. What also particularly is the two drilling dates. You can see rather well the difference, I think. That one is a little bit better established, which is of course that 1 week earlier than this one. So in this situation, I think the radish and the Phacelia is also very susceptible anyway to the drilling date, which is much more present here than when the other mix where we talked earlier about. So for you guys, again you see here a radish, you see a Phacelia, and you see berseem clover. For you guys, well, and you'll see that coming back also in the other mixtures. The difference is that the varieties are different in all those mixtures. Here we've selected the varieties which have a reducing effect on Sclerotinia sclerotium. We checked that here with Warwick Crop Centre. We did a trial there. It was in carrot to see if we can suppress the Sclerotinia sclerotium in carrot rotations. And we found there that we had very good results with some components which are in this mix. The Phacelia we did put in because it's a non-host to quite a lot of fungi, soil-borne fungi, and it also has a suppressive effect here in this specific case on Pythium ultimatum. That all together of course bring you a mix that you can have. If you have those kind of soil-borne fungi in your soil, you can suppress it while growing because it's already working while growing with the root exudates which are released. But also if you want to work it in afterwards by chopping it in, it has maybe a bit of biofumigation, maybe you heard about that system, coming also biofumigation, allopathic effect coming for that to suppress the soil-borne fungi. Coming back also on the nutrition of course, because well that was a focus on that one more on the nitrogen. Of course this is also capturing the nitrogen. You're not producing, well the berseem clover is producing a little bit but there's less berseem here than over there. But the thing is that you also pick up your potassium. And you pick also the phosphates. And there are of course a lot of stories about it. You can liberate fixed phosphates from soil. You can do that, but it's always in a very low quantity. It's better that you capture the liberate phosphates or potassium which is in soil. Also potassium is really susceptible to leaching. And with a radish in general, you can really catch up to over 100 kilos of potassium per hectare and phosphate about, let's say, roughly 20 to 25 kilos of potassium, of phosphate in soil. And nitrogen of course is variable, that depends on what is the previous crop, how much nitrogen is left. And it's particularly on this field you see some patches where the nitrogen is still present, the cover crop is better developed than in the other parts. That's really due to the availability of the nitrogen. So here again, a mix with radish, Phacelia and berseem. I think there is also a bit of a mixed up, I think, with something else, because this is of course not what is in the mix. I think this is also oilseed rape, so regrowth. Again, you see the big difference in drilling. The Phacelia is more present when you drill it earlier than in the late mix. So Phacelia is, again, maybe I'm going to repeat myself a little bit, but the Phacelia is really susceptible to the drilling moment. You need to drill it more earlier. And it will be more dominant than here. The difference here with this mix is that the varieties which are in here are susceptible to frost. So in fact it's the same species, but the varieties are different. So if you look over it, you don't see the difference yourself. But we have already made, from the test we do, we have made this mix. So if you drill this one, this is also frost susceptible. The other one is not frost susceptible. So you need to work there, the crop, before you're going to be coming back with your next cash crop. And of course here, if we have frost, the frost will do the thing. So you will have less cost anyway, less diesel cost to work the cover crop in. And maybe you can even directly drill your wheat or something else in this mix. It depends of course the species or the variety. The variety of radish here needs, let's say, -3, -4 for a couple of nights. Then you already see the damage. And the berseem and the Phacelia is also something like that, 2 to 3 degrees Celsius. But it also depends if you have a wet frost or a dry frost. Of course, a dry frost is more hard than a wet one. Also, plant stage is sometimes also playing a role. Larger plants are more susceptible to frost than smaller plants. But you will really see on the variety level the differences between a variety which is susceptible and which is not. Fungi Redux. So probably nematodes, well, PCN is an issue for sure in England, but there are also other nematodes which are present here and not always to your attention. So in our breeding program we also look to a lot of nematodes. And nematodes, there are a bunch of them, of course. You've got the cyst nematodes, where PCN is one of them. You've got the root knot nematodes, which is Chitwoodi, Phalax, which is on the continent are really a problem. In England, not yet, I think. And you've got the root lesion nematodes, the stem nematodes, and also the stubby root nematodes. And with the nematode, the problem is if you work with a mixture, you need to have all ingredients in the mix should be non-host or resistant to a specific nematode. Otherwise, you are going to reproduce that nematode. For PCN, it's a bit different, but because PCN is only related to potatoes or tomatoes, that kind of stuff. But the root knots and the free living nematodes and the root lesion ones, they are really, they have a host range which is very large, like the cover crops, like the wheat, like a lot of cash crops you guys grow. So what we try to do is it as an example. So let's say you've got in your soil, you've got a problem with beet cyst nematode, you've got a problem with root knot nematode, you've got a problem with root lesion nematodes. Due to breeding, we've got the varieties in this kind of mix that suppress actively those kind of nematodes while growing. So you don't need to do biofumigation, you just grow the crop, and while growing the crop, the roots, they attract the nematodes out of their natural habit, and they block, if it's resistance or not, they will block the life cycle of the nematode. And again, we find a lot of suppression with these kind of species. So in this mix, it is the radish, it's the rocket lettuce. And the rocket lettuce is also the salad you sometimes eat on your plate. We can find one, you can smell it, it's a nutty taste. But we've bred a variety there that suppresses the nematodes. What I didn't talk about is the clubroot, because clubroot is also, you guys probably also grow oilseed rape. Clubroot is of course an issue that's present also in England. And brassicas normally are host to clubroot. If you talk about the Ethiopian mustard, the brown mustard, the white mustard, all that kind of stuff, they are host to clubroot and will multiply the clubroot. Oilseed radish is a bit different. There is a difference on varietal level. So we did some trials also in-house, but also if coming from the officials in Germany, they do some tests as well, that there is a varietal difference. So if you have clubroot in your soil and you want to work with brassicas, you only can look to oilseed radish and then to a resistant variety. Please keep that in mind if you want to work with a brassica cover crop. Clubroot is a very tricky thing. There are over, I think, 100 different species of clubroot. There are a few main ones, the P1, P1+, P2 and P3, I think, if we look to the continent. I don't know in England so far, maybe you guys know better than I do. But the resistant mechanism works differently than in oilseed rape. So we test on 5 different types of clubroot, and if a variety of oilseed radish is resistant, I mean then 0 visual damage on the root, then we say it's resistant on 5 main pathotypes. We were talking biofumigation earlier. This is a mixture from us for Biofum autumn, so then is not the one I said before to grow it during summertime. This is for the winter time. So what is in the radish is winter hard, the forage rape which is in is winter hard, the Ethiopian mustard is the most winter hard we have in our collection. Ethiopian mustard is a little bit more susceptible to frost than the other 2 I just named. But with this we try to drill that around September and keep it up over winter time and then incorporate it in March to do that biofumigation. But again, here you see the biomass is too low to have a good effect of biofumigation. It really needs to go to that level. And you see it already starts a little bit flowering, specifically the earlier one in comparison with the late one. And the point, I don't know what the legislation is here in the UK, but if you're allowed to put fertilizer or manure or slurry on top of it, that really helps in getting a better crop establishment. And also a little bit of sulfur, also add a little bit of sulfur because sulfur compounds is also doing a trick. That is all stimulated it's all together to stimulate the level of glucosinolates. They didn't put any fertilizer here, so that's why I think the biomass is a little bit limited. But if you want to do biofumigation, really think about fertilizing your cover crop. And we do that also in the Netherlands. In France it's forbidden, for instance, but if it's here still allowed and you've got slurry available, it's a cheap way of adding a bit of nitrogen. And of course the radish is picking it up, it's maintaining it as well alongside the cycle of the life cycle of the cover crop. Well, this is something, well, I think it's also covered a lot with the regrowth of the oilseed rape. But this should be brown mustard, and brown mustard, well, it is something we grow because it's a very late flowering crop. So again, if you want to cover your soil for a long time without flowering, so there is an option for the Ethiopian mustard, the one we've seen before. We also have the brown mustard, and with brown mustard you also can do the biofumigation, because the syntegrin level is rather high in brown mustard. And so the brown mustard we see here, this is our brown mustard variety. This is the oilseed rape, and we added here some vetch. We did put the vetch because the brown mustard we have doesn't grow without nitrogen. So we do two things here. We add the vetch together with the brown mustard to get a better crop establishment and to get a better growth of crop. If you don't have slurry available, for instance, or you can't put nitrogen fertilizer on top of your cover crop. But you see, it's a very slow growing crop, so the benefit, so the oilseed rape took the benefit to overgrow it. So you really need to get rid of the oilseed rape before growing this kind of brown mustard. So this is the last one we like to show to you guys. It's something totally different than what you've seen before. It's buckwheat. Buckwheat is a lot of interest, I think, in the UK on buckwheat varieties. The problem with buckwheat always is that it turns into flowers very quick, very fast. This one is another one, is a very late flowering one you see, and it shows also a lot of biomass. You also can see the huge difference between the early drilling and the late drilling here. The late drilling is here, early drilling is there. There are a lot of talks about allopathic effect coming from buckwheat, on weeds, etc. It is a different kind of crop. For us it's a little bit new as a breeder. We look into it. The people say also that it has a repellent effect to leather jackets. So I've noticed that recently, that people were saying while growing buckwheat you probably will scare away your leather jackets in your soil if you have them. I still have to see. We also do a lot of work on wireworm since a couple of years, and this crop can also be something interesting for the wireworm control we have, to control the problem of wireworm. But the biggest advantage for you as a grower right now is that it is a crop which is, this variety, Sibelica, is much later, shows much more biomass if you drill it rather early, in comparison with the standard buckwheat varieties. For myself as well, what it's going to bring as a solutions for cover cropping. But for the moment it looks interesting anyway in the traditional rotation of brassicas as cover crop or black oat as a cover crop.
Thank you. I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank Peter for coming. He's come a long way to see us today and to talk about this. So just a quick round of applause please for Peter.
Thank you.